We did not allow their science to dictate our outcome.
Recognizing that I can plan for today.
The way you see your child, the way you treat your child, that's the way other people will view them and see them.
And that's for all children. Well, and I would say to friends of people with kids with special needs, offer to help.
Dear young married couple, did you know that 85 to 87% of couples who have children with disabilities get divorced?
You know, life brings a lot of changes, and one of those changes are having a baby, for instance, and it brings on a lot of challenges when that change occurs. Would you say, though, that a couple who has a baby, that they then find out that the baby has disabilities, that brings on more challenges? Sure, there are different considerations, but does it actually cause more tension in their team, in their marriage and family and home?
Right. Is it a necessity? Do you have to have a difficult time in their marriage?
So let's hear from a couple that we have been friends with for a while, Brent and Tabitha Bertram. They're incredible. They have been married 23 years and they have 3 kiddos. They've been parents for 17. Their oldest is 17 years old and their oldest child has Down syndrome. And in this episode, they share that story. They didn't know until after they had the baby, and they share all about that. And I think their perspective is just so refreshing.
Yes, we've watched them from afar parent and raise Jack, and they have done a fabulous job. And we decided to reach out to them and ask them for their perspective.
Yeah, and this was actually a request by you guys. We had several people asking over the last year or so for an episode on keeping your marriage strong when you have kids with disabilities. Yeah,
and by the way, if you do have ideas or something that you would like us to cover, we're here to serve you. So please let us know. Email us at hello@dearyoungmarriedcouple.com, and we'd love to hear what you want to hear.
So real quick background on Brent and Tabby. Tabitha is a school principal, elementary school principal, bachelor's degree in liberal studies, master's in education, currently completing a doctorate in leadership. And Brent is a building contractor. He's a licensed general contractor and mechanical engineering certification. They are hard workers, and they've been doing all of this since before they had kids, by the way. So they've maintained their family as a priority, their walk with God initially, their family, their church family, and their careers through all of this.
You're going to enjoy it, so listen up.
Well, welcome, Brent and Tabby. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome. We admire you big time.
Thank you.
How long have Brent and Tabby been in our lives now? Well, your life longer than mine, probably.
Yeah, your dad's been in my life ever since I can remember.
Yeah.
So, a long time, at least 35 years.
Yeah. And then I remember when we first started going to church together, which was, I want to say, around 17 years ago. And my sister became a babysitter for you guys.
Yes.
And then my other sister became a babysitter for you guys.
Yes.
And
we were so lucky.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we just have a lot of connection.
I went through withdrawals when she was moving on.
Aww.
So...
Yeah. Well, you guys have so much to contribute today in this conversation about keeping your marriage strong when you have children who have disabilities or special needs. And we're ready to dig into your story. So let's just start with how you guys met.
All right.
Okay. We met at church.
Yeah. Keep going.
And we went out on a date, and I think a week later I asked him, "Do you think you're going to marry me?" He said yes, and we were married 9 months later.
Oh my goodness.
I think it was kind of like that.
That is awesome.
How much do you really want? There were a few more details in that. Yeah.
Go ahead, please do tell.
No, I owe that to Bishop. Bishop said, "Hey, have you noticed there's a new girl here?" And so I took notice, and it was kind of interesting. When I first asked her out, I believe she said, "I'm not looking for any new friends." I mean, she was very direct. I'm busy, and maybe it was me who put that out. I said, "Well, you're never too busy for a new friend, right?" And she's like, "I'm busy."
Oh my goodness.
And so it was kind of tough breaking into that. And so she said, well, I'm going to be at the car wash at this time washing my car if you want to come over there and help me.
So that was our
How's
first
that?
date.
So,
Washing your car.
yeah, if you call it a date. But yeah, that was.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, she was very direct, very about business. She knew where she wanted to go.
I love it.
So yeah.
So awesome. So 23 years later, and here you are.
Yeah.
You've been parents now for 17 years. Tell us the story of how Jack entered your world. He was your first, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about that.
So he's our first child, and he was born with an emergency C-section.
Okay.
And he was in the NICU for 13 days. We didn't know that he had Down syndrome until a couple hours,
Yeah.
probably after he was born.
Wow. So you went your whole pregnancy and you had regular ultrasounds, but no one said, oh, it looks like he might have Down syndrome.
There were probably tests that they asked me to take, and I avoided. I didn't do that.
Yeah. What was your perspective on that at the time?
Whoever our child is.
That it didn't matter.
Yeah.
That's right.
It didn't matter the outcome. We love all comers, right?
That's right.
We take them as they are.
Yeah,
Love that.
That makes sense. So it wouldn't determine the outcome of anything.
No, absolutely not.
And probably hindsight, it was better not to know. Mm-hmm. Really just to be thrown into, here's parenthood, and along with it, we have special needs now.
Yeah.
Right.
Now it's probably quite a world shift for you guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it kind of started out like getting to the hospital and it was high stress to begin with, which did we come thinking we were going to have a C-section? It was an emergency.
It was an emergency C-section.
So the baby was stressed. They said, hey, the vital signs are a little weak. The heartbeat's weak. The baby's really stressed. We need to, and I just remember from that moment, it was like a blur. It was like, I remember the word crash being yelled, crash. We're going to perform. And it meant everybody went to work. This whole team went to work. They threw her on a table, gurney, and rolled her into some doors. And so, and it was just like from there. So
what made you want to go to the hospital? How far along were you at the time?
I was dilated to 8 centimeters.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that, but
Goodness.
when we got there, we found that out.
Were you in active labor?
I guess, but it was back labor. So it was different. So I didn't know. I had sent Brent, I'm like, go get me a heating pad because my back hurts. And then I got up and I cut my toenails and I was like, if I'm going to be in the hospital then I better take care of something.
Well, my perspective's a little different because it stressed me out.
Yeah.
She was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
She did not hardly sleep that night. And so she was like, I can't get comfortable, and then finally it was like, there's something wrong. This isn't normal. This isn't, I don't know that we knew what normal was with your first child, but normal according to, how everybody else, I guess.
Yes.
And so, and I think we had gone in before and been sent home.
I had called and it didn't sound like labor. So,
wow.
But then it was.
Yeah, so I remember
8 centimeters.
and I could be fuzzy on this, but it seems like we went in and they're like, no, honey, you're not ready. You'll know when you're ready. Well, she had been, it had been pain. And when she got up, when you're laying next to your wife and you're hearing it was bad. And so
all the groaning of
labor. I knew she was in a lot a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And so of course, as the man, let's fix this,
Yep.
And so,
I remember that feeling.
Yeah. So we took off and we got there. I remember even the first room that we were in, it was early. We got there early and the woman, everything was like, I don't mean to drag this out. Everything was normal, right? And she's not making any big fuss about it. And my wife's going, hey, there's something going on here. And finally, when the nurse finally got, I guess, good and ready to come in and kind of take a look, she's like, oh yeah, honey, you're dilated. You're ready to go. It was like.
So that was crash.
No, that was, let's get you in a room. Let's, and so then we're in a room, and what is
placenta? Well, I had placenta abruptia, where my placenta was tearing away. So that's when they recognized that. Okay. They brought in papers like, sign this, you're having a C-section.
Okay.
And 15 minutes later, he was born.
Well, wow. Well, then they had also gone in, and how they were getting that information was amniocentesis. What was the?
It's a little thing they put on your head to try and pull the baby out. Oh, okay. Like to help the baby. And
so they were able to detect that he was. So then when they said crash, it's like everybody started scrambling, right, and into the emergency room, the surgery room.
So you had Jack in a crazy situation, unexpected, and then you guys go home and
we didn't go home.
No. Okay. Shortly thereafter, they bring me a baby wrapped up, and like a burrito. Congratulations.
Swaddling clothes.
Right. Here's your baby. And so I'm holding, I'm proud daddy and holding this baby. And she says, his blood sugar's a little, I'm giving you all the details, but blood sugar's a little low. Feed him this bottle, Yeah. And the breathing, it was labored. The breathing was labored, and I could tell. And so I went back to the nurse and I said, "Is this his little chest?" And and it's indicative with Down syndrome. Okay.
But you didn't know this at the time.
I didn't know this, but it's low muscle tone. So he's those muscles that open those lungs.
Straining.
And under strain, and of course weak, and all of the trauma. Right. So anyways, so she goes, let me have him back, and so she disappears. So our introduction is that a doctor comes out and begins to tell us that, here's what we have. We have your baby has trisomy 21.
Or before they said there's signs, there's certain triggers. Yeah.
Palms. Yep. Palms, feet.
So then they did genetic testing, and like a day or two later, just to confirm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is difficult. I'm sure you guys probably didn't have this on your radar before you went into the hospital.
Sure.
How did you guys deal with just your own emotions of kind of a change in your world? Like, okay, we were going this way, and now it's not that way anymore. Like, how did you guys handle that together?
Well, even in the moment.
Yeah, in the moment. Because this is difficult, probably for a lot of couples that have big things happen to them. This is a big thing.
Sure.
And this could cause, I could see, lots and lots of tension and problems. And instead of facing the situation, they get aggressive or frustrated or angry at each other. How did you guys handle it looking back? And maybe some advice for the people listening to that when they go through hard stuff, how do they go about it?
Jackson was in the NICU for 13 days. And so that probably, and I was in the hospital for a little bit longer because of the C-section. And so probably that, our focus was on getting him out of the NICU.
Yeah. Healthy.
And so after, I think I was there for 4 days, and then Brent and I went home without him. And so we would spend the night at home, and then we would go back. And so probably our initial time with him was
one of us,
figuring out how to just get him home.
Yes, that makes sense.
Was our first focus.
So that was the mission.
Wasn't
really on, okay, how are we going to navigate having a baby with this need?
Yeah.
It wasn't about that yet.
It wasn't, and I think our perspective on things helped.
Talk about that.
Let me speak to let me go back to that initial bombshell, of, oh, hey, by the way, you don't have a typically developing child, you have a child with special needs. If I'm being completely honest, it was like, it was like a gut punch.
Yeah.
Because it's just so unexpected. And And so I remember, and this is why I think community is so important, the church body, the church family, that community, and God, because there was never any thought of doing away with that. I don't even know that needs to be said, right? But I'll say it because maybe it does need to be said.
Well, in this day and age,
some people do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. That was not an option.
No,
for you.
No, and so it changed. I think daddies think about, well, first I wanted a boy, right? That's.
Did you know you were having a boy?
Yeah, we knew he was a boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Some things are so. Some things are so like stamped in your memory, and then other things. Yes, we did know. But baseball and climbing a mountain and all the things that you can do with a boy. And I just remember thinking, how is that going to affect? What's that going to look like? And when I say look like, I had a view of that. My background, my parents were involved with some of these special need children.
What did your parents do?
Adults.
Just for our audience, because we know, but you tell.
They provided housing through the state for these, for developmentally disabled and also mentally ill and mentally handicapped. And so that just basically includes the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And so housing and they all went to school and they were great. They were fantastic, but I knew them as maybe young adults to old adults. I didn't know what that meant as far as a child, right?
Yeah.
And all the and who could have known the work that was going to, go into it? Yeah. But so it was huge. And I remember, and so I want to speak to that community part. I think it was the next day after he was born, and you helped me remember. I mean, the whole church. I mean, a large number of people just showed up, and of course, my mom is leading the charge, right? As far as, but came into that room and we started praying, and it was so powerful. I remember that turned it for me. It just turned it, all of that unknown and that dark, just, it was just gone. And I said, well, this is what we got. This is what we're working with. And so, honey, how did you?
I think for me, it was first, he's our baby.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not to think of him as having disability.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
He's our baby. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right. Okay. This is very real and raw. Like, doesn't matter that it's 17 years ago. Like, you guys have some really solid memories of what that felt like. And you can still feel it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people's perception of that whole situation too. And you could feel like probably like defending him too against everybody's perceptions.
Oh.
So
there were doctors that I was quite a bit more raw then, that I wanted to take to task. Because of just complete and total insensitivity on the subject. And so, and then they're trying to prepare you.
Yeah.
They didn't know my background, but I didn't have the background of a child.
Right.
So they're trying to prepare you. Look, if it takes a normal child 2 years, it will take, your child 4 years. Okay. I mean, it was almost like they had this, and I fell for it, just not knowing. They were speaking in very definites. It will take him everything longer, and there will,
as if it's a prescription.
Yeah, right.
Very
as
scientific,
as if we had to accept that that's the way it would be.
Wow.
And so I think Tab and I went to work.
Yeah.
We just went to work, and when we began to realize, so our first goal, now I'm kind of going back, our first goal was the seatbelt challenge, the car seat challenge.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You gotta, so they put him in and we thought we were going home. And they put him in the car seat and his oxygen saturation, because of that low tone, he can't, was low. And they're like, he's not going home. And I was beside myself. I just want to get out of this place and go home. Home is,
And he had already been in the NICU for how many days?
He'd been in the NICU for how long?
It was a total of 13 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then he had to go back in.
Well, he never left. He never was able to
Yeah.
leave. And then the night before, they decided, okay, probably tomorrow he can go home. We spent the night at the hospital to be sure we could take care of him without all of the medical assistance, because he had he had a breathing tube and different things to support his oxygen.
Yeah.
And so it was like we were proving our abilities to take care for him during the night.
Yeah,
Like you had to pass a test.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And he had to pass, the test. So his first 2 weeks, as any child, he's getting stronger, but he's starting way behind the curve. Yeah. And so, we're exhausted. We're up there constantly, we would go home and sleep, but then we would rise and get back there.
What were your conversations like in those first 2 weeks when you would get up and, okay, who's going to go to the hospital? Okay, we're going to go together. We're going to go separately. Like, were you guys having any normal everyday conflict, or was the focus entirely on let's get him out of the NICU?
I would think the focus was on him.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was a focus on Down syndrome. At all.
No, that's our baby.
Yeah.
Again, that's our baby.
Yeah.
And there was, after that initial, as I said, kind of gut punch, to me, there was no more, this is our child. I will defend him. I will, whatever.
And the turning point was community coming to pray with you.
It was, they shared in our situation, in our,
It's the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Just to summarize a couple of the points that I'm hearing is to not take the negative information and make that Bible.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Is to surround yourself with community, to see your child as a child, your child, and not something else.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to focus on what needs to be focused on, and maybe not make fears, just grow your fears out in the future. Because you could have done that, Brian.
Yeah.
So
we did not allow their science to dictate our outcome or the way that we approached Jack. So, and mommy, she deserves a crown. A tiara, but just tirelessly working, and both of us, but the therapies, and if there was something more that could be done, Mama was going after it, and I was the heavy, I was like what she said, kind of deal. So,
But we didn't emphasize the Down syndrome. Whatever he needed medically to thrive, that's what we did. But it was more of what does he need? What does Jackson need?
Well, and
how do we take that as parents? What do we do?
Yes.
Well, I think that the need, is tied to, but we didn't view it. It's tied to the diagnosis, but not.
Sure.
And so whatever it was, just like hey, we need this child to walk.
Yes.
Right. So, we need him to crawl. We need him to roll over. We need him to sit up. So there would be therapy that came in and kind of showed us, we would amp that up, in any way we could, no, you got to work. And I remember thinking this is tough on a baby.
Yeah. And the parents.
It's tough us watching, but it's like anything that's tough, I'm doing it for your good.
Yeah.
It's for your good. You're gonna, and so we had regular, we had occupational therapy, we had physical therapy, we had, there's just
speech
therapy. There's been, anyways.
So here's a question. So now hearing all this, now you guys are kind of like in that life talking about like, okay, now we're raising this kid. The divorce rates with of parents with special need kids is around 85 to 87%.
Yeah.
That's very high. I mean, it's already high. The divorce rates are already high.
Sure.
But 87, 85, that's really high.
Yeah.
Why do you think, like, with your background, your background in teaching, your background in your parents owned lots of facilities like that, why do you think that happens to couples where they can't seem to pull together on something rather than it just, splitting them up?
So that was really shocking to hear, 85, 87%. That surprises me. And when Brent and I were first talking about this, our thought was, what makes parenting a child with special needs any different? Like, it was kind of, we were like, that's kind of odd that would be a thought.
Wow.
But then everybody's child is different. Sure. Their needs are different. And we learned on Jackson how to parent. Like, we learned patience. We learned, we didn't know any different. And my sister was like, why do you carry him? I thought, well, if I don't, he's into everything. Like, I didn't know any different. That is what we did. We worked a lot differently. Like, going to the park was not an enjoyable activity. And I would see moms pack up their kids and that was like fun. So exhausting. Like, I didn't know that I was doing anything different. And so I think it helped our perspective on just like raising kids. You just do that. And
it's trial by fire because it was your first. Like,
yes,
isn't this
but
hard?
we learned.
Yeah.
We learned so much,
yeah.
but we didn't know any different. And so I think for parents who have had other children and then a child with special needs, the learning curve is so different
That makes sense.
that it could really be harder. And then every child is different.
Yeah.
Some needs are pretty significant.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you love your child, if you really love your child, right? You give that child whatever he needs or she needs to move forward, to progress. And so, so I think when we read that question, I said, I'm not sure that it makes any difference because you give them what they need and you just go after it. Thankfully, again, so much of this is rooted in the way we believe.
Yeah.
Right. Just the God factor is huge here. Right. And so faith, hey, I just know that if we keep on, it's gonna, right. And so
what has this situation taught you about Brent?
Oh man. I'm definitely more patient. What
does that mean?
These kinds of kids, how about this? All kids will wear you out. But these kinds of kids can wear you out in a different way. And they're really they have it's hard to discipline because they act the same, but there's no guile.
Wow.
So coming after them like you might one that knows exactly what they did.
Right.
Right. And so I remember attempting to engage at one point. And
give us a Jack story.
Well, I don't even remember because it really didn't happen after that. But I went to discipline, and the look on his face was not, oh, hey, I know I did wrong, and I've got it coming, or it was more like, hey, what did I do? You're gonna. I wouldn't even call it spanking. You're going to hit me because, right?
Because they don't even see the difference.
Right,
yeah.
right. Because, and it's, and they're charmers. Wow. So, they're charmers. And they're going to.
He's full of love and bubbly joy.
I love it.
And they're going to work you, right? And so that's their, those are some of their gifts.
Wow.
Yes.
Right?
So it was like, how do I try to change him or train him?
Well, and this is where I bow. It's the hand over hand, the just the tireless. It's so funny because in thinking about some of this, I thought you keep telling them, don't do that. Don't, and it seems like, wow, when is it going to kick in? When are they, and so you resolve that, well, maybe they just don't get that.
We did, though. I mean, there's a lot of help and support out in the community through the medical field. There really is. Okay. Right when he was born, they pushed in.
Defense mechanism.
So they pushed in. People
there.
pushed in so many different supports. And it was like, wait. So it took us a couple months, and then we got connected with like all the different therapies.
Okay.
But there are supports out there to help you. So like behavioral therapy was one where before we could connect with behavioral therapy, I had to go to a parent training. And I did think, well, I am an educator.
And you were already in education at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering how this shift. Yes.
So much because some of the things we were doing was perpetuating some of the behaviors. And so we learned.
Could you help us understand that? Because that might be really helpful.
So this is one thing we did in behavioral training is we had to practice, we had to take a behavior. And so Brent would work in the garage and Jackson would go out there where he wasn't supposed to go in the garage. And so he would go out there, Brent would give him a candy and say, go back inside. So Brent was teaching him, it was a reward to go do what you're not supposed to do. Then he would come. So it was this. And so we learned, we came up with a system outside of just locking the door. We had locked it we turned our lock around so that he couldn't, just prevented it.
Okay.
But there were things like I learned how we learned that, actually our behaviors are helping him continue unexpected behaviors, what we don't want. Mm-hmm. And he had a touching behavior where he would touch everything, the walls and everything. It bothered me.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't a big deal, but it bothered me.
Okay.
And so one time we were walking out of someone's house and he just took their candle with him. Put the candle back. Things that it was because it's not a social norm or an acceptable norm. Mm-hmm. But I did, through behavioral therapy, I had to take data. Like, how many times in 1 hour did he touch the wall? It wasn't as much as I thought. And so it was me adjusting my perspective and my ability to handle things like, that might bother me, but there's really nothing wrong with it. And then learning, that might bother someone else, but it's not a big deal. And if somebody else cares, I'm not going to care what they think.
Is there an age that you're, how old's Jack when you're talking about? I think
touching all the walls, he was 5 or 6.
Okay.
Or 7. But there was quite a while in there, 5, 6, 7, where I actually don't think I sat down during the day. Like I didn't sit.
Wow. And were you still working?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
She has worked the whole time.
Goodness.
This is why.
But I think is where I think perspective.
Well, we both worked the whole time.
I really think perspective plays a big role in. I didn't notice that maybe other people went to the park and relaxed. Or that people sat down and that they had time for those things. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter. Like, even now looking back, sometimes like, whew, that would have been tiring. Yeah. But you don't think about it. And you don't think, oh, well, everybody else gets to do that. I don't. Yeah. That doesn't cross my mind.
I would have.
How old was Jack when Piper came into the picture?
4 and a half. Right? He's almost 17.
16 and 14, and Piper's, 2.5 to 3.
Oh, Penelope's a 4-year gap.
Okay.
So 3 years then.
All right.
Wow.
So when he's 3 years old, you're still in full blown, like you're never sitting down mode. Mm-hmm. You get pregnant again. And when you had Piper, did you start to see some of the differences in what parenting was like with Piper versus Jack?
It took a little bit. Her milestones were met more quickly. Okay. Like Jackson, he would do push-ups we had him do push-ups when he was little, meaning it was necessary. Push-ups. He was like a baby, but we would try and get him to lift his head. And then Piper would just do these things and she would roll over. And then she started walking and she was talking and articulate.
And she was very articulate at a very young age.
Part of that, I think, is because Jack trained us on how to parent. He taught us how to be patient. And so I think our girls really benefited from that.
It's so true. Like, not only are they articulate and very intelligent, but all of your kids have the fruit of the Spirit emanating from them. And I think that began with the way you parented Jack, the way you had to parent Jack. And then the girls saw that example from an early age.
We were discussing something that I think this is, again, it really, that beginning moment, that pardon the use, that defining moment right there for us in that hospital room when everyone was praying. And we just decided, I mean, again, and maybe you had decided regardless. I mean, but, and that sounds like I hadn't. It is what it is.
Everyone's perspective is different.
Well, it was just dealing with the blow.
Yeah, the shock waves.
The shock of it. You know, there in no way would I ever. I am so thankful for that child. Yeah. He is some of the very best parts of me. Oh yeah. And I've grown in watching him, and even I see my dad in him. Yeah. You know, and it's just so much fun. You know, but
part of that. We viewed him like he was extra special. I remember taking him shopping and I'd set the car seat down and I thought someone's going to steal him because he is so special. Like, and everywhere we went, we viewed him like that. Yeah. And I think because that's how we see him, that's how other people see him.
Right.
If you, and they do.
Yes.
Yeah.
People who know you. I mean, strangers might see him differently.
Sure.
But
well, and what's interesting, strangers do come up to us. And I thought, I have to always look nice, smile, and be polite, or people are going to get mad at me because they think I'm not treating him well or something.
Well, I think that's a very, very, very powerful example, maybe to others, in that the way you see your child, the way you treat your child, that's the way other people will view them and see them.
And that's for all children.
And so if you think you got a bad batch of this or that, right, and you act that way, then people will respond that way. But when they know and see that you're proud, this is my child, this is, you know, they may even feel like not behaving that way, but they know they're going to meet a mama bear or a daddy bear. And so they're like, oh, he's so cute.
But that also helps to give our children confidence in who they are. And
for sure.
Yeah.
I love that little, just going back a little bit, I love that realization you had of tracking his touches. And how that shifted your perspective of like, wait, this is not his problem as much as it, or
it's my problem.
Maybe it's both of our problems.
Yeah. But that also, because I know one time we were at the park and somebody was going to help me discipline Jackson. And I just decided that's not okay, that's not what he needed. And I let them know that I don't do that. And we don't discipline like that. And but knowing that I know what's best.
Yep. That's awesome.
Because you've been a student of your child is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. These nuggets of advice that you're giving can apply to any parent with any child, right? Because every child is different. And every child has different needs and different stages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's where we thought, what does it matter? Does it really put an extra strain on your marriage by having a child with special needs or having a daughter who's a teenager? I mean, there's...
Yeah. So your perspective obviously made a difference for you.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know that we even knew that we were making a conscientious choice or that it was just
we have a perspective now.
When
you're in the trench, you're just slugging it out.
Yeah.
You're just doing it.
Yeah.
What is some advice? Because, okay, you were just doing it, but it was still hard looking back, right? Like, what did you guys do to keep your marriage strong through it? Like, because obviously, even though if you knew it was hard, sure, like, but you didn't know it was hard, and it is hard. So how did you guys navigate that and keep your marriage healthy and you guys are still here today? How'd you do that?
Well, we talked about that. We've left our kids twice overnight.
Okay.
In how many years?
17. Well, Jack will be 17 this month.
Wow.
So I know other people do that a lot. That hasn't been our paradigm. Like that hasn't really been available to us.
Okay.
So I don't think we've thought about it much until we knew we were coming here. And then we start thinking about these things.
So you didn't do overnights by yourself? I mean, other than twice?
No, but a few years ago for our anniversary, we went to Tahoe and we did get a little bedroom off to the side.
Okay.
So we had 3 kids for our anniversary with us. And this year,
Happy anniversary!
but it didn't, but we're together, you know?
But I don't feel like that we missed out.
Yeah.
So how did you come to not feel that you didn't miss out?
Not.
I think addressing it just with the questions, I think, twice in 17 years. But you know what? We've really enjoyed doing things as a family.
Yeah.
Oh, there's been little minor inconveniences, probably, might have made more at the time, but looking back, I realized that it's caused us to be stronger. We're better, we're better together. Yes, we need our alone time.
So you clearly have perspective looking back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Talk to the person who is in the trenches and they're like,
They don't have perspective.
man, I don't have perspective. I see all my friends having overnighters and vacations and
this is their second kid.
and they're like, and we can't do that. Like, and they're kind of in that doom and gloom stage. What would you say to them?
So there's a poem called Welcome to Holland by Emily Kingsley. And it was written more towards the Down syndrome population, talking about a man who was on a plane to Italy and ended up in Holland. And he's like, this is not my destination. Sorry.
That's good.
To finish it.
Oh, that's good.
Take a minute.
So finish the poem.
It really describes the nuances of this is not, I'm not as versed on the poem as you are, but basically this is not what I expected. Yeah. I'm not where, I thought I was going to be, but as he began to embrace where he was, he begins to realize the beauty of the place that he is.
Okay.
And so I think this has been our journey. Yeah. It's not what I expected. It's not what we ever thought, even though I had some background in it. It's not what I ever thought, but it's by far been the best. Wow. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure I wanted to go to Holland or go
to Italy.
Because Holland was a beautiful place.
Yeah, and it talks about how the man in Holland sees his friends going back and forth to Italy. He can't go, but it's okay.
That's so good.
It's really powerful.
You know what I'm hearing a lot of, and I wonder how often you guys turn to this, is I hear your ability to look at your situation and to feel gratitude for what you have.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like that's I don't know, a virtue, but that's a beautiful thing. That's what I'm hearing.
Speaking to the challenges of parenting, I think people have to, there's very little gratification that comes. They eat, right? They get sick. We take care of them. We pay their bills. Totally. We wipe, change their diapers and all of the stuff that we do, make sure that they're getting their education. So, but if we can remember that, the future is bright, and if we can stay in the trenches, this little guy or this little girl's going to be something.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm investing. They're the new improved her and me. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what we're trying to do? Isn't that what we're trying to, that's the goal. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter. It really, the only thing that really matters is they love Jesus, but any of the baggage or the setbacks or the disabilities or that stuff doesn't that in the scheme of things.
But even in the trenches, it is gratifying. Like every day, really, it's exhausting, but it is gratifying.
How do you do that? Because not everybody does that.
I don't know. I do think it is perspective. I do think knowing what you have control of and what you don't, and accepting that. And at first, when Jackson was born, it was a little bit hard because I do plan a lot.
You are a planner.
And so recognizing that I can plan for today and I can think about the future, but I don't know.
I'm not, I want to be clear. I don't sit in a seat that says it's not gratifying. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here. It's not gratifying to me in the trenches, but it's extremely satisfying.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's still, I think to me, it's the way I view it.
Yeah.
The gratification comes later.
Okay.
When I know, like when people walk up to you and they say, "Oh, that's your daughter? That's Jack. Oh, I just met him. Oh, darling." Or he is, that's gratifying to me.
You probably get a lot of that now.
Well, yeah, but those early years, it was still satisfying.
Yes.
Just I don't think it's
Love it.
I don't think I don't think it's gratifying by my. And again, maybe I'm splitting hairs, but
Yeah, well, I don't think you can meet Jack and not smile.
yeah, right.
True.
Well, in his worship, I mean, I love his worship.
it.
He is, again, it's that, gung ho.
Yeah. He's all in.
Yeah.
He's in the choir.
But he's all in always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that is something else is we didn't, talking about perspective, we didn't tell Jackson, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember when Penelope discovered that he had Down syndrome, and we never didn't say it.
Talk about that. So you have 3 kids,
3 kids.
2 years apart each, 2 to 3.
Well, Penelope's 9. So 5 years younger, 4.5 years younger than Piper.
Okay.
And then Jack and Piper are 2.5, 3
Okay.
years. Penelope, she was like 5, and she said, like, Jackson has Down syndrome? What is that? And she was starting to put it together.
Yeah.
But we never didn't talk about it. It's a part of who Jackson is, but it doesn't define
This is our
him.
family.
Yes.
And it was like a real dawning. But it was interesting that she didn't think any different.
Yeah.
And Piper and Piper and Penelope have always embraced him as big brother.
That's so
Yeah.
Beautiful.
good. When you reflected on that moment of like, wow, she just got it. How did that make you guys feel?
I don't know. I remember where we were when she said it was like a dawning. But I think recognizing that we view Jackson for who he is and we treat him with no limits and we don't expect anybody else to put limits on him. And so the girls hadn't either.
Yeah.
You find out the true quality of your kids, I think, when in those moments of revelation, when it's like, oh, because there's this part of them that begins to come out and change and to accommodate, and to love at a different level because, oh, there's a disability, and so, they still fuss and you know what I mean? They're siblings.
Yeah.
They still do all of that, but there's a definite understanding that, it's my brother and he's special and I love him. Yep. And while I might jab him, don't you try it.
That's right. They stand together.
And so
They do.
They do. They
The
stand
3 of them
together.
have a really good bond.
And so you again seeing that quality, and it's another one of those tells that we did something right.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say the girls have developed special skills that not everybody has. Like children their age don't possess because of their experiences. Navigating with Jackson, navigating
They're just
our family.
little tabbies.
That's exactly what I was
little
thinking.
tabbies.
They're little tabbies, and Tabby she's got the stuff.
I'm glad you think so, Brent.
She does. She does. So I'm very proud. I'm very,
Yes.
Yeah. So, can I go back just to one thing? You mentioned that divorce rate. I did not know what that divorce rate was, but growing up, and being kind of in that community of people, I would meet the parents. There would be little dances that they would have for them and little get-togethers, and so and I remember hearing the stories, and there was even divorce back then in those communities, and that and how that the siblings even, because. And it's a total leadership thing. It's a total mom and dad thing. These kids demand a little more attention than the next. Sure. Some normal kids develop, some typically developing demand more than the next guy, right? And so we deal with those. But I would say, I can remember saying to my mom and dad, how come, the parents never come and visit? And later realizing that often there was divorce and that these children were placed in homes because of these very reasons. I don't know how to say it other than the siblings would turn on these children. I mean, literally, they're not like me.
Wow. They'd have bitterness against them because of the focus being on that child. And
the need being great. Mom was, trying to take, and that was like, you don't care. There were a lot of, you don't care about me.
But with that, what we have recognized, and some of this you don't do you don't know you're doing it until you reflect on it, is that if the girls need something, like if Piper has a need or Penelope has a need, then Jackson does have to wait. Mm-hmm. Now, there's times where his needs are pretty known and it requires immediate response. But sometimes it's, you'll wait. Mm-hmm. And I want Piper to know I prioritize her and Penelope to know that. Mm. And Brent brought up, as we were talking about this, that he needs attention too.
Well,
that's right.
And so do you.
Yeah.
Yes.
The deal is I think when that's going on, when that child is, for lack of a better way, driving a wedge between everybody in the room, and they can do it, and they know, probably again like any other child, and they know the timing is impeccable, right? Not a good way. But there's a redundancy, Yes. I mean, you can give some kids a stare, right? And they like, okay, I better go sit down, right? Not so. And so that redundancy and that intensity and so you have to draw the lines. And I think in some of those other homes, those lines weren't drawn. And before long, you have two people who are adults that this is just creating hell.
So learning how to teach a young little boy where the boundaries are is vitally important for him to function later in society.
And for your marriage to function.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with that, sometimes I will employ methods or strategies that I wouldn't with another child. So go ahead and you can hang out on the computer while I have this conversation. Mm-hmm. Whereas because I realize what he's doing well and what he needs support in. And so if I need this quiet time right now, go ahead so I can have a conversation. Yeah. Because I realize that if Brent's need is more, or Piper or Penelope, if their need is bigger, then I need to respond to that. That's really and being okay with that. Because sometimes it's like, do I allow him to do that? Or
right.
And so just recognizing it's okay.
Yeah. So the same method of prioritizing your husband or your wife helps you guys stay connected. It's the same method that helps the girls not feel like they're less important or they're not prioritized.
Yeah.
And so it was pausing, setting boundaries with Jack, parenting a little differently based on his need, and focusing on each other or the girls when there was a need there.
Yeah.
I'm not good at broken continuity in a conversation. All right? I mean, I'm not, especially if I know it's, just let me get this said. And then you've got a child who is insistent that what they've got, they're not just demanding, they are they are grabbing it and interrupting it, tearing that wire, that continuity apart, right? And so I think those are the frustrators. Those are the where I'm like, at times, and I've gotten better, but I don't know how much better.
We have locked them in the backyard one time. We're like, stay outside. We're going to have a conversation.
but you work at that.
Desperate measures.
They were safe out there. It was fine.
Well, and give parents hope who are in those younger stages where, like, for instance, tonight you said, we've started letting them stay home, the 3 of them by themselves.
Well, and this morning, so Jack's on quarantine because he has surgery next week. And so he has chores in the morning. And this morning, he was up, like, doing the cleaning, dusting the furniture. He was getting everything done.
The chores done.
And I was like, Jackson, because he has a little cough, I'm like, take this medicine now. Because if he's sick next week, it doesn't work out for us.
Okay.
But he's like, I'm doing my chores first. And so he was up doing chores. Laundry was not on his list, but he saw some laundry, so he started handling it. So, yeah. But, I mean, it wasn't because we just let him do whatever. I mean, we did insist he grow.
You're in Tabby's army.
Yep.
Right.
But we didn't. It would have been easy in the moment. And it would have been gratifying for the whole family sometimes to say, that's okay. You don't have to do that. You don't have to stretch yourself. But we won't. Because he will benefit from us forcing him to meet his potential. And he wants to.
Yeah. Now.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, it may have felt like a little bit of pressure.
Sure.
But now, I mean, look at the fruit of those years.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of, that I know of, Down syndrome folks, adults, that are less social. Like, I would say Jackson is probably the most social person with Down syndrome that I know. And so, like, I think that's probably a result of not just his personality and temperament, but your guys' parenting.
And not setting limits.
Yeah.
I think that is important. Like, we weren't scared. Some parents, I think, set limits because they're scared and they're fearful. So Jackson wants to ride around the block by himself on his bike. And I was going to allow it. Piper comes out there crying, don't let him. Because she was afraid for, the things that could be, could be out there.
I haven't been game for that. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
I believe that he's fully capable. It's the car backing out of the driveway that doesn't see him.
Yeah.
And so that's the daddy part. I've watched. The other night they went to the mailbox, and on your way back, I was sitting on a stump right directly in front of him, and he didn't pick me up. He did not spot me.
But he will go around the block by himself. Like, he will. And he did twice. I followed in the van. Yeah. He didn't see it.
So I was like, send up the drone.
We shadow him.
But he will. And that is, so we're not going to limit him. Whereas I think some parents, for fear of safety, they won't allow their child out there to fail or to get hurt. Where Jackson fell a lot, like learning to walk, learning all the different things he's learned to do, he had to fall. And it could have appeared to others that we're being mean, but we had to learn how to deal with that. Like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But how much better is his life now that he's fallen?
And how much better is it for us that we can leave them all at home alone?
Exactly.
And it's fine.
His experiences, he draws from those. We're with Sly Park. We went and stayed. There was a school trip, and so I was a chaperone in the dorm with him, and we went on hikes. And look, his knees would not allow that, but I said, no, we're going. And so I strapped him to my back, and hiked. He's 100 pounds. But we went
more
up
now, right?
We went. We did it. We went up and down those hills, but he draws from those. He'll reach back and go, yeah, you remember when we did this, when we did that.
So we've made a way for whatever is out there for him. We'll make a way for him.
He wants to drive. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean,
You're not counting it out.
No. And I gave him the book to study by, and he gets motivated at times, and he reads through it, and he's like, I'm ready. I'm like, all right, you'll take the test, and the state of California will help determine if you get your license.
Sure. Yeah.
But we do know someone who has Down syndrome who got her driver's license.
Wow.
And it took her 3 years of driver's training. She's a little bit older, but it's
possible.
It is possible. Yes.
And so we don't set limits. Like, why would you set limits? We don't set limits for ourselves.
That's so good.
Or we shouldn't.
Why would you be the one that says, sorry, you're not capable of doing that?
And it is actually, Piper has mentioned a few times, do you know, Jackson doesn't stop. Like, noticing maybe some other people who have limits set on them and recognizing that, why would you do that?
So even the girls are starting to recognize the difference in the way that you guys do life as a family.
Yeah.
Fear will often dictate those boundaries,
Totally.
And
it's out of love. A parent loves their child. They want to protect them.
Sure.
But then they shelter them.
but you're going to wind up loving and protecting them their whole life, you know.
And that
Exactly.
leads to
they're not going
frustration.
to
That's right.
progress.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, such good points. For those listening, what are some resources that you could, I know we're talking about Down syndrome, maybe some people out there that have Down's kids and they're trying to figure out how to do it better. Are there any resources that you could point people to help them with that journey?
Well, that poem,
Yeah.
Welcome to Holland. In California, we have Alta Regional Centers, which have not been that resourceful to us yet, but I think as he gets older,
Okay.
that will be more resourceful. The public school system has more resources than a private school. They just do, because they have all the different therapies. They have the network to support the kids. And I work in a homeschool environment, and I see a lot of kids with special needs come because the parent is protecting them, and they are afraid to put their child out there.
Yeah.
And then their child does not benefit from other people's input.
Wow.
There's also I've connected with a Facebook group, but really
There's the
some
Down.
of those I haven't.
There's I believe it's
Connected
called
with that
the
much.
Down Syndrome Alliance, and they tell of events like there's. Remember we had Jack going to. There were walks and runs for.
We haven't connected as much though with the Down syndrome community.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess
Well, you
because we have a church
community.
community.
Yes,
It's very
And
involved.
we don't. Yeah.
Yep.
And so we don't have that need.
Yeah.
Not just the need, but they're kind of a really progressive crowd group. Just a really liberal crowd. So I took Jack. Wanted to go to a dance at and I wouldn't take my girls to a dance at Laguna Town Hall. And so I took him, and of course met a lot of the mommies and daddies and the teachers and the host and all of that, and an exceedingly liberal group of people. So I don't know that would be a crowd just generally as just with our belief system that I would,
But there are
encourage.
Facebook groups. There's different groups you can reach out to.
Probably just the camaraderie of knowing someone else who's in a similar position.
I was just going to say, I think to find a friend and do it on a more individual level, I think would be better.
We met someone in the Target parking lot when Jack was little. She has a child who's a couple years older, and she recognized Jack, and so we exchanged numbers, and we've seen her recently at a piano recital. So we've not stayed in touch a lot, but enough because the community is a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, because if I had a Down syndrome kid, I would want to probably call you guys and be like, all right.
Let's get together.
He's throwing his food again. What do I do?
And there have been families that we kind of. What was your friend? Anyways, I'm drawing a total blank, but they played soccer with him.
Oh, yes.
And that we stayed in touch.
And there are that soccer was a special soccer league for kids with special needs.
Okay.
So
like-minded mom.
Yeah.
Conservative values, I think,
But I
this and
meant
that.
sometimes you just have to kind of be vulnerable, and you have to allow for other networks that might be from government supported networks to help connect, because that's how I connected with him, was through someone else. So, and you have to be proactive too. You really do have to be proactive. And one more thing that I thought about is you can't have too much me time. Like our world is so focused on me time.
Yes.
Brent didn't know what me time was.
Well, because
I'm like, you don't know that's a thing.
You got to have it to know it, right?
But a lot of women, you know what I'm talking about, me time. Everyone's like, well, I need my me time. Well, no, you don't. Like, what makes you think you need me time? I mean, I think you have to take care of yourself, but the world's not about you. Yeah. And when you choose to get married and you choose to have kids, it's not about you.
Now I got to ask you, Adam, do you know what me time was?
Yes.
You do?
And I like it.
You are evolved.
Are you don't know?
You're woke.
Well, I'm awake. I'm awake right now.
I'm kidding.
But I do think there's a selfishness of that might be hard on a marriage, hard on your family, because you think you need all this time to yourself. And yes, you need time away. You need a break, but maybe not so much of a break. And maybe you should reshift your focus away from yourself and on the needs of those around you.
Yeah, that's good.
That is good.
That's good. So for those who say like, and I know we're winding down, but just a little bit of practical advice from you guys on this. For those who say like, oh, I do need a break and I haven't gotten a break in years. Like I need a pause. Even if it's a date night, I mean, we recommend couples have date nights once a week. You know, I know that might feel excessive for someone in your shoes, but the studies show that when people have date nights once a week, they are less divorce prone, significantly less divorce prone. And so I'm curious when you guys have, because I know you have gotten away for couple time, even if it's not overnight, what are some practical ways that people can seek resources and support, respite, babysitters, especially if people might be hesitant to say, I think I'm capable of watching kids or caring for kids who have a disability.
And we'll get right back to the interview, but what we want to do is make you aware that we have a resource around this whole subject of talking with your kids about sexuality, and it's called Having the Talks.
And in Having the Talks, we address things like homosexuality, transgenderism, but even just the basics of sexuality, like anatomy and identity. We start the whole deck off with identity, and it's a resource for parents and children to play together. You can play it like a game, and it helps children as young as age 3 all the way up to teenhood. There's really 2 decks in one, because we have questions for younger children, and on the other side of the card, it's a question, same question, but for older children.
Yes, and this deck is designed to really bring these subjects up organically so that you can really have this discussion with them and open a safe place for you to be an askable parent. So you could go to havingthetalks.com and get your deck, and it will actually reroute you to Amazon, and you can get it tomorrow.
Next day shipping.
Yeah, if you ordered it today.
All right, link in the show notes. Back to the interview.
I think Alta Regional
provides
respite care.
And you can choose, but that's within the state of California.
Okay.
In other states, I don't know what networks are available.
Now, they may not be like-minded as you, but they'll give you the night off, or what have you. So if you're looking, but you can find, if you can have your babysitter go sign up, there are ways to do it where you're someone else and they'll get paid for it.
Okay.
So there are.
And I really think communicating with your local school, because the schools are connected.
Yeah.
So through, Piper had a little friend in preschool who has, autism, I think. And so that mom was like, hey, our church is offering respite.
Oh, that's right.
And so we would take, and they offered this like once a month or every few months, and you could bring all your kids.
Okay.
And it was a safe environment. And so we did that for a while. And then we thought,
so
we're not going to be converts. We feel a little guilty taking advantage
So we've had lots of dates, just not overnight dates.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
now that we're talking.
Yeah.
So
there's a spell where you just don't really get a lot of support. But we have had a date on the front lawn with lawn chairs.
There you go. Yes.
And where the kids, as long as they're safe inside. And that not everyone has that situation.
Yeah. So once they're asleep.
Or at least somewhat preoccupied, but we'll go out back by the pool and, and
That's good.
But when they were smaller, Jackson really, he didn't stop unless he was asleep. And so we did need someone to help us. We found, amazing babysitters that would come to our home.
Yes. And you found that through church community.
We found that through our church
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah.
I think if you
that's-
don't have a church community, you need one.
I often wonder how
good
people
advice.
do it without
Right.
Yeah.
that.
And then also
Community.
not being afraid to allow people to help you.
Talk about that.
I probably wasn't as willing to allow people to help. Like I just didn't know. And probably being more open and just letting someone, if they want to take my child, like, yeah, go, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
But and we were probably super protective of all of our kids. But being willing to allow them, our kids, to experience being with others and to allow us that break.
Yeah.
But being open to that. And that probably, especially when the kids were younger, we were like, no way. We're not trusting anyone. But we probably needed more help. We needed people.
So
to
it requires
support us.
both having the resources, the community of helpers, and your willingness to relinquish that control or safety net.
Yeah.
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 That's good.
We might have had a little post-traumatic stress syndrome, just in the way he entered the world. And so it was like, no, we'll, there were people I can remember that offered, and
But it was almost more stressful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if it's
Not
more
to-
stressful, I mean, you do yourself a favor and just,
The benefits don't outweigh the risks.
but what I do love is that you do become exceedingly resourceful. And again, so we just started when we would do things, we just all did it together.
Yeah.
And that's powerful, actually.
Well, and I would say to friends of people with kids with special needs, offer to help.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because maybe someone's like Tabby and doesn't know that they can actually ask.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's good to have a window into other people's lives and to bless them, because they you could reciprocate and keep their kids, especially if you're a trusted source. you know?
Yeah.
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 That's
So
so
good.
good. Such good advice, you guys. And just, I think the overarching theme here is perspective.
Yeah.
If you can view this through the lens that you guys have described, man, your journey will still have some challenges, but you're going to have so much more joy.
Yeah.
You're going to have so much more peace. I think I just see peace in you guys. Like you guys are able to just sit here at peace, knowing that you have done a good and faithful job of parenting all three of your
I've
kiddos.
tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've actually left them at
thank you.
home.
Yeah, they're at home. And really, I'm very comfortable with that. And that's
Yeah,
a more recent
they're
event.
fine.
How long? Have
2
we-
years ago was the first time we
2
left
years
him
ago.
alone.
And it
Were
was
you a nervous wreck?
Yes.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and it was like,
evening. It was an evening wedding. And
and we would overlap, oftentimes different kind of overlaps. Like she'd be like, what time are you going to be home? Because I'm going to go here. And so as long as it was like 10, 15 minutes,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So then I would be home and I'd
So you
walk
warmed
in,
up
they
with those little
right.
overlaps.
So it was a lot of those. And then finally it was like, okay, they got this. And of course we have too many tabbies. So, so
Very capable.
No, Jack really, actually, he is so responsible.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yes.
And so the hard work has paid off.
I love
it really
that.
has. And I look forward to.
It's really amazing. I'm sure people are listening going, wow, so hard work can actually pay off.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap up this episode and we're going to ask you the same question that we ask all of our interviewees. And that is, rewind back to your first couple years of marriage and what advice do you wish you would have received? And then fill in the blank, dear young married couple.
Move away from your community for a year.
Ooh. Can you expound upon that?
Outside of all of your influences and grow together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even if you can't physically move away, remove yourself.
There's
Leaving Cleve.
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
Yep. Because you don't know the power of the influences around you.
Yeah.
I mean, all over, your neighborhood, your church community, your family community. Those
Yeah.
are influences, and it's impacting the way we behave.
It's not about them anymore. It's about you.
and
It's
learning.
It's about you too.
Right.
And
So if you have
growing,
opportunity to
and
move
growing
away, I'd
together.
move away for a year and then
Wow.
come back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. Very particular, strong advice.
Well, and that
we
sounds,
talked about that before.
as
before we came here.
as you were keying on that, on that being strong, I do recognize that it's strong, but I think it is so valuable.
Oh yeah.
I think it is so valuable.
I mean, we had that
You guys
similar
did.
experience, and
We really did.
it really helped form us into who we are today.
I think it just gives you that, like, the autonomy teaches you something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That really can't be learned when you're reliant on
Yeah.
mom and dad and brothers and sisters to come through for you. Or
Yeah.
The people that you would normally go to, right? To work through or to whatever it is, that's who I should be going to work through.
Yes.
yeah,
Right?
a
'Cause
reorientation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so too often I think those outside influences, or I should say the normal influences
your
that
family.
that have been there.
And you don't
too
even
often those-
recognize
that
it's influencing
But they're in the
you.
way. They're in the way.
And we're talking healthy families too.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
both had
We love 'em.
family who share a lot of the same values and,
Yeah.
But it would have made us more reliant on each other.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Quicker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like what you said, Brent, too, like the reluctance to listen to the influence of your spouse is there when you're pitted against your mom, who's been there for
Sure.
30
Yeah.
years, 20 years, whatever it is. Like,
Sure.
well, I'm supposed to now listen to you, but my mom's still talking.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, she's talking even though she's not next to me. Really, I can hear her.
True.
Right? And so you have to break those. You take the good for sure. And but not that there's bad, but you take what is applicable.
Yeah.
And then but you got to start.
We've never had that advice, but I like that advice.
Yes, it's good.
Well, and maybe it's not doable to physically move away. I mean, but be aware and
Well, and leave
Yeah.
and cleave is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
good.
So good. Well, thank you guys so much for making time out of your busy schedule
Yes.
to come and pour into the couples listening. It's really an honor, and you guys are doing it. It's really awesome to hear all your tips
thank
and
you for
strategies.
having us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're grateful for you guys.
It's an
Thank
honor.
you.
It's an honor. Thank you. We love you guys.
All right, friends, we really hope that you got a ton out of today's conversation. And if you want help, if you want personal guidance with individual counseling or couples counseling, or even help with you as a couple reaching the goals you have, just reach out. Give us a call at 916-678-1797 or shoot us an email at hello@dearyoungmarriedcouple.com.
No matter where you are in the world or in your marriage, we can set up a counseling session with you and we can work toward progress. We also post marriage advice regularly on our Instagram, which is @dearyoungmarriedcouple, and we'd love for you to join us in conversation there. All right, see you next week.